Good morning. This is Karen with My I'm Possible Dream, and we are all in with the Cavs and winning. But it's not always about winning. It's about living life loudly and following your dreams and your passions. And today I have a very, very special guest with me today. I have Sherilyn Bryce with me, and she's here to talk to me about an organization that she started called Develop to Serve. And it's quite interesting because when you look at it, it talks about finances, and nobody wants to talk about finances and budgeting. I know I certainly don't. In fact, I run the opposite direction when somebody asks me about my budget. But it's something that we all need to look at, even just budgeting time. So, Charlene, welcome to My I'm Possible Dream, and tell me what your dream is all about.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My dream is to be able to train financial educators how to reach others in a way that they can create balance in their life. So it's not just about budgeting and expense tracking and saving for, that dream vacation or wedding or house or college. It's more about serving those with little to no income and helping them get to Friday and helping them get to the next month, but doing it in a way that keeps, their integrity intact and doesn't say, I know more than you, so you should listen to me. Because typically, about when it comes to budgeting, they know way more than me. They've been watching aunts and grandmas and moms stretch a dollar for generations. It's more about the quality of life.
Well, it's interesting because there's always someone in your life who claims they know better than you. Why did you buy that car? You didn't need that car. You don't need to have that expense. But as we were talking earlier, sometimes that something special in your life brings a little bit of happiness to you that allows you to go out and do things better for yourself and for your family. So it's not that you're overspending, but you're spending so that you can make better choices and achievements.
Right. And we live in a time now where luxuries are actually more affordable than basic necessities. Housing, healthcare, childcare. Those are the expensive things. If you have an infant, you're paying anywhere between $700 to $800 a month in childcare. But a phone bill may just be $75 a month. And we spend a lot of time judging others, especially when it comes to money, because we're secretly judging ourselves.
Right.
And we want to look like we're spending money well and we're being wise. And the only way we can do that is if we compare ourselves. And what I try to bring to the table is that my own personal stories, that I don't do it perfectly, but this is your life. It's yours to live. And I want you to live it comfortably.
I really like that because over the years, having a son with special needs, I've had many people who have said to us, well, we don't understand why you're struggling. And for many years, we didn't have insurance. So most of our money went to paying medical bills. But I never felt that I really had to explain myself.
Right.
But yet, trying to budget, trying to balance, we just found ways to do it. But yet, sometimes you just don't know how because it's so overwhelming. So in your organization, you're there to support, listen, and walk people through this?
I'm actually there to train people on how to do that.
Okay.
So what we do is we train other financial literacy educators on how to help others. So I taught a class of 15 students. There are organizations out there that are teaching these mandatory classes for those who may be on government assistance. They have to go. They don't want to be there. It's very clear they don't want to be there, which makes it very hard for the educator. So we train them on how to reach them first, how to bring them in and say, this is not your typical financial, planning or literacy class. I'm not going to, give you a bunch of information you already know. Instead, we're going to talk individually. It is proven that education of any type that is individually focused works. And so I show financial educators how to do that in this space.
So they do a one-on-one rather than a group training?
It's a group training, but it's online. It's a webinar.
Okay.
So Develop to Serve charges for the webinars, but you also get all of my materials with it. So you get a membership to Develop to Serve, and you get all my PowerPoints, you get all my notes, you get all my resources, everything that I've used to build a successful program. I just felt like we have so many other companies and organizations wanting to get involved. If you look up any type of shelter or organization, they're pairing with banks and credit unions because they understand that there is a market for them in this space. So many people are unbanked; they don't even have bank accounts, and they want to come in and they want to help. But companies don't really do anything unless there's going to be an outcome for them also.
Right, exactly.
So it's not to knock what they're doing, but it's to say, yes, what the information that they have is valuable, but if you really want to have a customer for life, you need to address these things as well. And so that's what we do.
So tell me a little bit about your background. So how did you get here in the first place?
Well, I like to compare myself to Forrest Gump. So I've done quite a few things. I went into the military. That was kind of the first big jump after Ohio State. And there I learned some languages that most people would never think to learn. I learned Serbian, Croatian, and Persian Farsi, and no, I'm not fluent. From that point on, I got married and had 2 children, and that is kind of where the financial aspect came in. I just became so fascinated. My husband at the time was in the military making a very small amount of money, and we had to make it stretch. And when you talk to other moms and wives in that space, they're all trying to make it stretch. They're all trying to make it work. So I would just find little ways that I could control. You can't control the money that's coming in. It's coming in. And so I just, even at an early age, I came from an affluent family, but I enjoyed the simple life a little bit more. I liked my friends who's also maybe were affluent, but just didn't live as extravagant as I would say my father. I can't blame my mother. My father did. And it just seemed like they were just so much more free. And so I kind of took that approach to my own life and went into teaching and realized I had a gift for teaching, but didn't really enjoy teaching children. I enjoyed talking to their parents more and kind of finding out what was going on in their life and helping them in those places. And I taught for 6 years, and again found it very natural, but really looked forward to drop off and pick up time and parents calling me. And so I then became a stay-at-home mom and joined some stay-at-home mom groups, and they were all saying the same thing. Like, oh, how are you feeding your family on $60 a week? How are you doing that? And saying, oh, this is what I do. Or, well, do you have food in your pantry? I have tons of food in my pantry. I have tons of food. So then why are you going grocery shopping? And I started going to people's houses and helping them figure out, what meals they can make from what they have, doing grocery shopping trips, just doing all types of things. And it just became a passion of mine. And one day a friend of mine, it was after I had gotten divorced and was back in the space of trying to make it stretch, said to me, you wrote an article years ago about, budgeting and finances, and I want to use it in an anthology that I wrote. And I was like, okay. Now I am self-proclaimed not a writer. And so there took a bit of editing. And from that point, a friend reached out to me and said, hey, there's a job available that you're really overqualified for, but I think you'd be really good at. And I was born and raised in Oberlin, and at the time I was in Maryland. And I thought, And I looked into it, and I said, yeah, that's something I'd be interested in doing. I had no idea it would bring me to the place I am now or the desire to do what I'm doing now, but that's typically how it works.
Well, it's interesting because we never know exactly where we're going to end up. We all have dreams. And that's what this show really is all about, my I'm Possible dream. But it is about taking that deep inside passion and letting it grow. And obviously you've done that many different times.
Yes.
And that's what makes a person successful. I know growing up myself, I came from a Jewish ethnic family, and in the back of my mind, I was told it would be nice if you married a Jewish doctor. It didn't work that way. I have a wonderful relationship with my husband. We will be married 33 years in
Wow.
February. And, we've had our struggles, but we're together, okay? And we've made it through. When I went to college, my dream was to be a broadcaster. My parents' dream was I was going to get my MRS, okay? Which I did. But taking your dream and fulfilling it. And that's what I'm finally doing now. I love being with people. Every career path I have followed has been centered around people. I love what you're doing because what you are creating for the community is hearing what individuals need. We don't have a middle class anymore, as you brought up earlier. We are all falling into that lower class, and we all have to learn how to balance life. It's not just about the budget. It's balancing life.
Right.
These individuals that you are training, who now are training many of us who need to learn how to balance, are the people that they are training, are they employed, unemployed, a combination of both?
It's typically a combination of both. If there is employment, it may be part-time, it may be sporadic. So you're not talking about those who can say, I have this amount coming in every month. And so this is the amount I need to, look at. They're saying, I don't know what's coming in every month. And, I know I need this or I know I need that, but I'm not sure. Or they may be on government cash assistance. So they may have that money coming in every month. And even though they're not working for it, it still needs to do what it's supposed to do.
Right.
There are all different types of, the demographic is so large. I just looked at a study yesterday that said in the state of Ohio, in order to afford a decent 2-bedroom apartment, you need to make at least $15 an hour. That's not what we're making.
No, nowhere near that. Right.
Even looking at that, which is actually on the low end of the 50 states, it's not enough. And so even if they're working full time, they're not typically making $15 an hour. So where are they living? How are they paying for electric? How are they paying for any of their utilities? How are they feeding their families? Like what are all the insecurities that we're talking about? And this translates to children, which is even a bigger picture. Kids know when things aren't okay. And it has their effects on them in school, how they perform. It's just an overall picture that we really need to kind of take a look at. People will step back and say, well, my finances are fine. Why should I care? Because it affects us all. It really does affect us all in some way or another.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed, my son graduated high school in 2008. A lot of his friends obviously have graduated college as he has, but they're struggling to get full-time, decent-paying jobs. The jobs that they're getting, they can barely pay their student loans back. I know when Alex went to college, our first comment was, well, don't worry, we'll help you as best we can, and you'll take out student loans because you'll be able to land a job. And even if you have to live at home for a little bit, you'll be able to pay those loans back. But I think he's going to have to live at home more than a little bit to pay those loans back. So I think you're right that children today look at the future and it's like, what's in it for me?
Right.
If mom and dad are struggling today, or if mom is struggling because she's alone, or dad is struggling because, he's raising me alone, what is my future like? Is there a way that our young people in school could benefit from classes like what you're offering?
Well, in the state of Ohio, financial literacy is actually mandatory in the schools.
It is.
They're not so much enforcing it, but it is a requirement that they take some form of financial literacy within their 4 years. But what you're finding is that, where do you fit this in?
That's true.
Where do you fit it in? And so we definitely in Oberlin at the high school, they have a financial literacy program. It's taught by an amazing woman who also teaches business, but she's teaching it to freshmen because there's nowhere else to put it, and we all agree this would be so much better. Their seniors last semester, in school, but they're inundated with other classes and things that they have to take. So they can't fit it there. So it's kind of one of those double-edged swords where, again, they come in saying, oh, well, I want, a Mercedes, and I want this, and I want that. And you're like, oh, this is the price. Oh, well, I have years before, I can think about
right,
that.
Exactly.
I'm going to be a such and such, so I'll have enough money for that. And they're in ninth grade. So you don't really want to kill their dreams right away.
Exactly.
You got to wait till after they graduate from college to kill their dreams. But, it's kind of one of those things where you're like, they're there, that it's coming down. But you also have, some of the programs that a school with a very limited budget, they're going to take a free program over anything that they have to pay for, regardless of whether or not it's going to be effective, because this is not really training them for academics. This is just something we kind of have to do now.
Well, it should be part of the academics because it is numbers, it is math, and it's part of life. And it's sad that we aren't teaching those things as our children are growing up. I don't know. I learned those basics when I was growing up, and it's helped me through the years. But I do know that my son did not really get those basics, and even when we tried to teach them at home, a lot of it was, I know, right. Which of course, this generation, they know everything. Right. They know more than
I remember knowing everything at 18 too.
Yeah. I wasn't allowed to. I came from a home that said, no, you don't know. And so that's the way it was. It's interesting as we talk about some of these things. Many of the people who support my I'm Possible dream are small business people. I have a woman who out in Medina, Jen Bakes, and she chose also to be a stay-at-home mom. She has 3 kids, and she has a number of businesses. One is her baking business. She also sells jewelry and poofy products, which are organic products. So many women and some men are doing small things at home, but again, there's no guarantee of that income coming in, and they have money going out, right, because in order to create this income, they have to buy products. Right. And some of us look at it as, oh wow, look at her, look at all those businesses she has, okay, but yet they may be successful, they may not be. Right. We have to stop judging each other, don't you think?
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to do is to encourage, especially those who want to have their own business, because it is hard. It is so hard. You're the only one working. You're the only, if you're not working, nobody's working. I just really encourage people that if there's something that, something else that they want to do, and that's part of it too, it's part of the class too, what else can you do? What else do you do? they may not have all of the legalities in place where, they may not have the business license or whatever they need. But okay, so if you did, I had a woman and she was in her 50s and that was stressing her out a little bit. I'm not, so I wasn't familiar with that space, but she said, I'm barely making ends meet. She had a special needs son, and she said, I'm working this part-time job, and it's just so stressful. And she was doing a skin line. It wasn't Mary Kay, but it was something along those lines, and we were talking about that. But she was also a licensed massage therapist. And I asked her, how many massages do you do a month? And she said, I may do one or two. I said, well, how much do you charge? And she's like, usually about 60. And I said, okay, well, how much extra money do you need a month? And she's like, I could probably use an extra $300 to $400 a month. And I said, so how many massages is that? And she's like, oh, you're right. And I said, well, also take a look at how much money you're bringing in. Because if you're only working part-time and they're only paying you $9 an hour, how much massages would you need to cover all your expenses? And she said, I never thought about it like that. So, it's not just about, helping them meet their needs. It's also helping them meet whatever that drive is inside of them. You want to be able to make dinner. You don't want to drive 30 miles to work anymore because that's gas,
Right.
How do we arrange these things?
Well, and that was part of how my I'm Possible dream started. That's how the radio show started. 2.5 years ago, we realized that Alex was going to be graduating college. He was having a hard time with his special needs landing a job. People only wanted to see him as being autistic, even though when most people meet him, they have no idea.
Right.
So we chose to start the initiative to help him grow. Last year, he had this opportunity to be with an internet radio station that helped him grow his sports radio talk show. And from there, as I was managing him, it allowed me to start this radio show based on his initiative, helping people find their dreams. And that's when I found mine. It was like, my degree is in communications. I love to write. I love to speak. I love to help people. And so I started the show. And when we determined over the last couple weeks that we truly were better off independently, they gave us a great start, but there's just so much more that we need to do. And that's when I sat down with my son and I said, what is it we really want to do? Now, a couple of years back, I probably would have sat back and said, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I had a full-time job. I was making good money. I was convinced that's all I could do. And I wasn't happy, but I was trying to convince myself I was. Now I try to explain to people, I don't care if you're 20, if you're 40, if you're 50, if you're 60, if you're 80. If you have it in you, there's something you can do.
Right.
If you're 80 years old and you like being around people, spend some time around people. Maybe you knit. Maybe you like to read. Maybe you like to paint. Maybe you just like to tell stories. Spend your time with people.
Right.
There's got to be something. But sometimes it takes talking to a person like yourself who says, so you're a massage therapist. And you charge how much for massages? And how many massages would you have to do to create the income you need? And all of a sudden, that woman looks at you and goes, wow, didn't even think about that.
Right. And I truly believe in sowing in other people's dreams. Even if you don't know what yours is, help somebody else reach theirs. Because
Absolutely.
Through that, you will figure out what it is. My sole purpose is to serve others. That's it. That's where I'm happiest at. No matter what it is, if I can do something to help somebody else, I'm in. There was a day I remember just waking up and I couldn't get it off my mind. I just said, all I want to do is just serve others. I want to be there for other people. That's all I want to do. I don't know what that's going to look like. And this is probably some 5 years ago. I have no idea what this is going to look like. I have no idea where it's going. But it was just this fire that just said, this is all you want to do is serve other people. And so that's how Develop to Serve. That's how the name came about. It's because I just felt like through the years, through all of my experiences, I was being developed to serve other people. And I have an amazing board of advisors who understand that, who completely understand this is all she's going to want to do. So at one point in time, we were trying to figure out how can you do this and kind of step back and be a CEO and watch, these things. And I just said, I'm not ready yet. Maybe one day I'll be ready. But right now, I really need the relationships. I really need, if it's not with the direct person themselves, with other educators. I need those interactions right now. And maybe it'll turn into something else. Maybe it'll just be what it is for infinity. But I'm just so open, and I just get so excited when I meet other people that I can say, oh, you know what? I know who you can talk to about that. Oh, that's what you want to do? I know somebody who could kind of point you in the right direction of maybe where you could find that or get started. That's all a part of it too.
Well, it's interesting because as we walk this path of life, we don't realize that we take detours. And sometimes we're on a detour and we say, where are we? How did I get here? This isn't where I thought I was going, but wow.
Right.
I like the scenery. And today I found it very interesting. When I went and friended you on Facebook, I see we have a mutual friend, okay, by the name of Shamika.
Nelson?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And she has taken new paths.
Yes.
And I am so proud of this wonderful, beautiful lady. And it excites me when I see friends that are exploring life. She's turned into a phenomenal photographer. When I first met her, I was doing photography. She outshines me a zillion times. But the point I'm trying to make is that our paths cross in so many different ways. And if we're open to taking those detours, it's amazing what we find. I'm almost glad that I broke my femur back in March because I wouldn't have met Karen Malone Wright.
Right.
Okay. What an amazing woman she is.
Yes, she is.
And if I hadn't met Karen, I wouldn't have met you.
Right.
So what I think is important to people is that it's about learning how to not just balance your life, but open your life.
Absolutely. People live so, and I think it's because of the judging. I think it's people live so closed off, where they're just afraid to let people in, and they're afraid to tell people this is the challenge I'm having. Especially new business owners, like admitting that you're having a challenge is like the biggest no for some reason. Where it's helped me so much. Where I will say to people, I want to be in this group because I need help with this challenge, and they'll say, oh, well, that's not really your challenge. Your challenge is this. And you're like, oh, okay. Let me have you talk to so-and-so. Or, call me later. Or, and it's the way we are with life in general.
Yeah.
When people have any type of issue or struggle, and social media hasn't helped. Because, everyone wants to look like they've got it together.
Right. Exactly.
And none of us have it together. There's no way that if we're still walking and breathing, we figured everything out. And so we have to be able to find not just people to open up to, but people to open up to that can help us.
Exactly.
I can open up to my mom about my business till I'm blue in the face. She can't help me. She is there to support and cheer me along, but she would say, I don't know what to tell you.
Exactly.
And so I have to be able to open up to advisors and people that I meet and say, hey, have you ever had this problem? And most of the time they're so happy to help. because it's just, I think it's part of our legacy is to help others and to bring other people along. And if people would become more open to that, I think, and just in life in general, I think that they would be a lot more happy and feel a lot more balanced.
I agree. So you said you have 2 kids.
I have 2 boys, 9 and 12. My 12-year-old is Sincere, and my 9-year-old is Isaac, and then I have one on the way it's a girl, and her name is Jocelyn Ruby.
Oh, yeah. So when are you due?
Not until October.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So it seems it's gone really, really fast. But every time I tell people it's October, they're like, oh.
Well, but time does fly. I mean, I don't want October to be here too soon for me. For you, that's different. So tell me about the boys. How do they relate to mom's energy for everybody else?
They're the exact same way. My oldest son is a spitting image of me. He, came out wanting to help other people and just being emotionally attached to others. He is the one who everything has to be justified and true, and he's just always, but he's also very much a 12-year-old boy. He plays competitive soccer. He's full of energy. He's a typical firstborn in all the ways you can think of. He's very protective of his mama, and but very much a daddy's boy.
Okay.
So when my second son came along, I kind of prayed he'd be the opposite, a little bit more calm, a little bit more not like his mama. And he started off that way, but he is super analytical. Very analytical. He can look at a situation and just say, oh, this is what you're trying to do. And you're like, are you 40 or are you not? He lives life in a very different way, day by day. He is not the kid he does not want to go into double digits. His birthday's in November, and he said, Mommy, I could stay 9 forever. And I thought, wow. I wish he could stay 9 forever too. He's like, I'm just not really that excited about double digits.
Well, he'll change his mind.
And I think he will. Yeah. He's also the kid that says he wants to live with me forever, and he wants his wife and his kids to live with me also.
Oh, God forbid.
I was like, I think he'll change your mind about that. He doesn't want to go to college because he won't know how to get home. But he, both of them very much understand that, my mom is passionate about serving people, and you can't stop her in that. That's what she's going to do all the time. And so she, my hope is that for this little one is that she'll see it too. She's also very much a spitfire. She wouldn't let the ultrasound technician take any pictures of her. She didn't like to have her head examined. When they were looking at her feet, she sat up and looked to try to see what they were doing. So this will be exciting. But yeah, they are really, just these factors in my life that remind me why it's important to be open and honest and to have integrity and to be an example to them of my best me, which is, when I mess up, that means I have to admit I messed up and I have to be honest about it. I can't say, oh, it's because I'm an adult. And when you become an adult, you can do the same thing. It has to kind of be like, oh, nope, you're right. I messed up. Because my kids are very open with me, and they'll say, I heard you say such and such. Was that true? And it's like, yes, but you weren't supposed to hear that. Or no, that might not have been all the way true, and I'm sorry, Mommy shouldn't have lied. Yeah. They keep me very humble and in good character.
Well, I sort of talked about something very similar in my blog, that this morning when I woke up, I was looking out the window and it was gray and thundery and, stormy. And when I was a child, my mother used to say, when the weather was bad like that, either God was up there yelling at us kids down here on earth that, we were bad and we had to be good, or the angels were bowling. We never were told really what the weather was.
Right.
Now today, if you said that to a kid, they would look at you and go, no, and they would tell you about what's going on in the atmosphere. So life has really changed because our kids are open and honest, and they tell you like it is. And so as parents, we have to be more direct and open and honest. It goes back to what you were saying a little while ago, that as people who want to begin a business or who are in a business, sharing, not being afraid, we all learn from our mistakes. If you don't share your mistakes, you're never going to learn. If you hide those mistakes, you're going to keep failing at one after another.
I don't want to work with anyone who tells me they've never failed, because I'm like, we can't relate.
Exactly. You know, a year and a half ago, when I sort of left my last job, I was going through a breakdown. Emotionally, I was spent. I had a lot of stress with Alex. I had a lot of stress just in general because I was trying to be so perfect.
Right.
And I didn't realize it until I went to the doctor, and the doctor just looked at me and said, "No one's perfect." And I kept saying, "But I have to be." And he said, "You do not have to be." And I came home and I made a list of all my faults. And when I looked at that, it was like, wow. Now how do I correct them? And that was the day that I became a new person, because I accepted the fact I will never be perfect, and that's okay.
Right.
And these are my faults, and I need to start making some corrections. And it liberates you.
Yes.
And I now have more friends now than I did a year and a half ago, because I look at the world differently. That's what I'm hoping this programming will do, is get people out of that boxed in shell. We all have so much to offer. And your spirit is just incredible. I'm hoping that a lot of people hear this.
Thank you.
We're going to just push it. I have another woman that I am going to send you her information, because I think her spirit and yours are a phenomenal mesh. I met her about 6 months ago when I was on unemployment, and I went to her. She was my intake counselor. She moved me. I did not want to be at that appointment. I felt above and beyond everybody there, and she made me feel like I really did belong, and her advice to me was just wonderful. She became a friend. But she's got a spirit in her that she too wants to serve. And there's just that I think would be great.
Great.
And that's what we need to do. We need to network with each other. In closing, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Honestly, I see myself doing more speaking. Again, my number one fault that I'm not trying to correct is that I don't enjoy writing. And so people tell me, like, "Oh, you should go and do some classes." And I'm just like, no, I'm actually okay with not being good at that. I love to speak. I love to talk. I love to tell my story. I love to encourage others. My dad once told me that I have a gift of getting people to think and do things that they normally wouldn't do. Now, at the time, I thought that sounds like manipulation, so I'm not really sure if that's a quality I want, because he put in a phrase that I should be a politician. But I've instead learned to embrace that as, seeing things more insightful and trying to be an impact in a good way. So that's where I see myself. but I love to teach and I love to train. So I think that Develop to Serve will evolve into different types of trainings. We're working on a cultural awareness training that will be free, and just some other how to create programs, how to do these little things, just little things that, will be free or very little charge, for people kind of just to see my teaching style. So, I don't often plan much, just because I have a vision, but it always changes. Things happen and things come up. And so I say, well, this is my plan. And then I just laugh because it's like, and who knows how far this plan will get before it turns into something else, which I'm perfectly okay with.
Well, and that's good because it means you're creative and you're open to new ideas and you're supportive.
Right.
Who could ask for anything more? So how can we reach you?
You can reach me at developtoserve.com. That is my website. It has numbers and emails. My email is developtoserve@gmail.com. Also, I'm on Instagram at Sherilyn Serves. I'm also on Facebook at Develop to Serve. So right now I have the monopoly on Develop to Serve. so
just look
pretty much if you Google that, it's me. So that's where I can be reached.
And you can also find her on the blog myimpossibledreamah.wordpress.com, and we will keep her information on there for infinity and beyond. And with that, thank you, Simi, and we've got to do a seminar or something together and get more information out. Okay,
that'd be a lot of fun.
Sounds good. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.